Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back. I'm here with a special guest, Ellen Elizabeth, and she will be talking in this episode of Real Life Adventures in Living, an attitude of gratitude, how AA expanded my soul knowledge. And she'll be talking about addiction that she's experienced and which people who are listening to this podcast may have experienced as well, and how her life has evolved and grown in terms of her soul awareness. Welcome again, Ellen Elizabeth, and why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited to chat with you, and I hope your listeners get something out of our conversation. So I am Ellen Elizabeth, and some of the things we will be talking about today is my journey through my struggles with addiction that I've had for several years, and now I am currently a sober twin mom. So my goal in life now is to share my story with anyone and everyone who wants to hear it, in the hopes that it resonates with someone, or it possibly even helps someone get the help they need to save their life. So I do my best to coach others with any of their issues that they're having. And I also just am as vulnerable and raw as I possibly can be, hoping that my honesty resonates with people. Essentially, my journey that got me into this state of gratitude is very dark. It's not something that people would think of as a journey that someone would be grateful for. But I think of it as a journey of gratitude because it brought me to who I am today and is enabling me to be the best person I want to be. So I essentially had a very happy childhood, no trauma, nothing out of the ordinary, very supportive family, very loved. And when I turned 17, I met my first boyfriend, and the codependency basically started immediately. I changed who I was for him and changed my likes, my dislikes, my looks, my attitude, in the hopes that he would stay in love with me. And turns out he was a drug addict. So he introduced me to drugs. And in my brain, I thought, well, I want him to stay with me, so I'm going to do what he wants. And I also learned that I believe I was born an addict. He was simply the catalyst that got me into the behavior. And it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, one of the things you said was, Ellen Elizabeth, that you were born an addict. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because I think we can have a great childhood, like you're saying, but there's something that exists too that kind of moves us and leads us toward maybe addiction. And I have some thoughts about that, and I'll share that in a minute. But the other thing is that, we can have kind of an innocence about us too. And when we meet someone who has strong, desires or strong addictions or what it may be, we kind of move in that direction because of it. We want a person to love us, and that's very core. It's similar to what the soul wants too. The soul wants to be loved as well, and appreciated and valued and seen in many regards. And sometimes, we don't see our souls for a very, very long time, or sometimes not at all.
Right. So, yeah, looking back, as you're in addiction, like, you're never the problem. It's everyone else's fault. You're not doing anything wrong. I would look at myself and think, this it'll be okay. It's just a phase, things like that. But now that I'm sober and looking back at things, I see that, there was nothing in my childhood or early teens that could have like made that switch go off that made me an addict. I I believe that it's truly just in my DNA, and it is a disease that you can just be born with, but there was nothing that could have just made me go searching for drugs or alcohol or made me want to numb things. I had a very good life when I met him. And so it was simply like the first time I put it in my body was the click that I needed to kind of take off. But just thinking back through my younger years, I never did anything like, so I always did everything to excess. Even the first couple times I drank, even though I didn't drink a lot, like the point was to see how far I could take it. And from that point on, I never drank just to like be social or have one glass. It was always all night long to see how long I could continue drinking. And same with drugs. It was never like, I'll just do this today and wait several months before doing it again. It was every day. So that's why I think it was in me when I was born. There were no circumstances that could have caused me to go searching for it or seeking it. It was just I needed it that first time. And that's just kind of what started it all. It was always within me, if that makes sense.
Well, it sounds like there was a component of you or a part of you that was always testing the limits.
Yes.
And in that process of testing limits, that could be with anything. And so it just happened to you have a boyfriend who is in his way testing his limits already, moving forward in what his addiction had to be. And he kind of pulled you into the stream,
Exactly.
with that. So tell me more.
So we were together from, let's see, I was 17 till 21. So pretty much all of my college career, as I say, was not normal because I wasn't doing anything with my college friends. I didn't go to college parties. I didn't do anything. All I wanted to do was go hang out with him and do our drugs together. I ended up moving around a few times to follow him and just completely isolated myself from everybody. It was very volatile. It was obviously not a great relationship, but I stayed in it for the drugs. I didn't really know how to get drugs, where I would go, what I would do if he wasn't the one there helping me. And so that was a very upsetting, hard time, especially when you're that age anyway. It's already a age where you're learning a lot about yourself, and I was just kind of numbing everything, so I wasn't learning anything. But I did finally get out of the relationship, and I was able to quit those drugs without any issues, but I just immediately started drinking every day. So that continued until I was about 33. So I was about 14 years of active addiction. And the drinking, I thought was normal. Society makes it seem like it's normal to drink all the time. And if you don't, you're like a loser. I, however, didn't realize not everyone drinks all night, every night. Some people can have a beer every night and then that's it. But to me, I thought just having something every night and then continuing all night was normal. I was trying to make up for what I thought was lost time in college, like not having college friends and not doing college parties. So that's how I kind of rationalized everything in my brain. And it wasn't till probably like 26, maybe, I started realizing I needed way more alcohol than anyone else I was hanging out with. And I started hiding booze. I started bringing, shooters in my purse and water bottles filled with it so I could have the amount I needed just to feel the effects that I wanted without people seeing how much I was really drinking. And at that point is when I kind of figured it wasn't as normal anymore, but I didn't know how to stop at that point.
It is as if there was kind of awakening coming up on that something's not quite right.
Right.
Then you said something that's important, which I think does happen with addiction or in alcohol, is that there's numbing process that takes place. And in the numbing, how do you think that impacted you in terms of were you aware of it happening? Because you're saying, looking back on it, you're saying that, but as you're going through it, were you aware that there was kind of these layers being putting upon you in terms of keeping you more distant from your true self?
Yeah, so I definitely have very strong memories of I would hide things in the closet. So I'd go to the closet and drink out of the closet, and then I'd go swish my mouth with Listerine. And as I was looking in the mirror, I would say to myself in my head, you're an alcoholic and you're either going to die this way or you're going to have to quit. And as soon as the word quit came in my brain, I just shoved it down and said, nope, that's not happening. Guess you're going to die this way. Like, just the idea that I would have to quit was just unfathomable. And so that feeling I just numbed more. So it's
Mhm.
like I knew it was happening, but I didn't want to. So I just kept drinking more to not feel it. And so it was just this cycle every day.
Mhm.
And that's what's so baffling about the whole disease.
Yeah, it is. It is as if there's a part of you knows what's right to do, and there's a part of you say, we're not doing it.
Right.
And so it really, hits this aspect of what I talk about sometimes in the podcast about the ego persona and the soul.
Yeah.
And the ego is like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do it when I want to do it, and you can't stop me.
Yep.
Type of rebellion in some ways, but we're thinking it from a level of, no, I should have the autonomy and the freedom, but we're not being aware of the fact that it does has its ramifications on the soul and the dampening of the soul, because the numbing, the very thing that the soul does. And when we start unnumbing ourselves, it starts to awaken more and
Right.
gives a more enriched and feeling in life. Did you find that happening for you when you kind of move past that 33 and you realize that I want something different?
So yeah, I knew I wanted something different. I knew I needed it. I knew, like, I was going to kill someone driving or kill myself, or, something terrible was going to happen. And they say in AA, the good thing about getting sober is you feel your feelings, and the bad thing about getting sober is you feel your feelings, because that's like what we've been trying to avoid this whole time when we're drinking or using. And so now that there's like the clarity there to feel everything, but that doesn't mean I enjoy it. I don't necessarily love feeling all these things. And that's what the whole point of the AA program, the steps and everything is. And I don't only do AA, I also do several other recovery programs. There's tons out there that aren't necessarily AA related. But, AA's been one of the ones that really works for me. And it's just, we start learning these things about ourselves that we'd never known before. And before getting sober, I never ever thought about, like, the soul, like how my soul is interacting with everything in the universe and how all of it is combined. And I have this whole new spiritual growth and process that I'm in tune with now. And it's kind of like I would never have gotten here if I hadn't gone through that. So it's just like
Mhm.
the evolution that I needed to have to get to this point.
It is as if when you're the very thing that we wanted to feel, which is feelings, we don't want to feel, but if we want to get more connected to our soul, we need to feel,
Right.
because that's the avenue or one of the voices of the soul is through our feelings and helping us to sense things and our intuition and being able to realize there's a sixth sense of something else is going on here in my world. And there's something greater than I want. I just don't know how to get there. And so if
Right.
our feelings are damped down, then we can't quite get there. But
Mhm.
and so what we do is we feel empty. So we try to fill that void with something. It doesn't have to be the addiction of alcohol or drugs. It can be food. It can be
Right.
sex. It can be other things that we're filling that void with, in order to try to make us feel whole. And we're missing the element that is our soul that's really urging us to be able to take notice of it so that it can be able to support in some ways us and help us to feel a greater sense of happiness or fulfillment.
Yes, exactly. And it's just so, I mean, it happens to everyone in their own time. No one dreams of being an alcoholic when they're a little kid. Like, they're not like, oh, I hope I'm going to AA when I'm 35. But but it's like we all get to where we are, as we need to. If someone had said, well, people did say you need to quit drinking, throughout my 20s and early 30s, and I was like, F you guys, like I'm doing what I need to do and I'm having fun and this is who I am. And
Mhm.
it's just once I was the one who made that decision is when it actually worked.
Yeah, and what are the things that sometimes these addictive types of qualities do for us? It makes us believe that's who we are.
Hmm.
And we keep on believing that's who we are, but guess what? It isn't who we are. It's not who we really are. And so, but it tries to, because what it does in that ego persona state of world, of living in the world, around us, is that we think these illusions out here is going to give us something. And we move to a point through time, and we realize, I've got to look within. And that's what I'm hearing you did, be it through the help of AA or through other mechanisms of self-awareness. I've got to be okay with who I am first. And sometimes that's hard to be able to do, but something happened for you that said, I'm going to do it.
Hmm.
Be okay with who I am.
Right. Yeah. And it's been 6 years in sobriety. It's still daily. I still work on it daily. It's not, you know, puppies and rainbows and bright lights flashing from the sky. It's daily work. But at least I can figure out more of myself now without the numbing and the self-loathing and guilt and shame and all of that type of thing. So it's really powerful just to see from where I was 20 years ago to who I am today is a vast difference.
Hmm. And I think you said something that was right on the mark. It's a daily process. And I think that's what life is. But that daily process, even though it may be sometimes struggling a little bit and sometimes really have to curb our desire, that we do have for that substance or for that fill in the blank, whatever it may be. But ultimately, by the mere fact that we are making a choice and conscious and being intentional about it, which is something the soul wants us to do, the more
Right.
the soul actually tries to help us to
Exactly.
be able to say, what did we say?
Right.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
So you have these words of encouragement, or you have, certain things that you're reading through AA or through your own reflections or spiritual guidance or whatever it may be to continue to anchor you. So there's certain things that you've been doing that has been anchoring you. And I hear one of those is through AA and some of the other programs that are out there. What are other things you've done to kind of anchor you?
Yeah, so I have a very strong recovery program, is what I call it. And it did start
Mhm.
while I went to rehab to get through the first 3 weeks of being sober. And that's where I kind of learned like how to live on the outside world, as we called it. And it's definitely a very, you know, do meetings as often as you can, meet other like minded people, AKA sober people, like surround yourself with the people you want to be with. And just like, I've, like I've said, I've become closer spiritually than I have in the past. So I do meditations and yogas and different
Mhm.
spiritual retreats, and even just going on a walk with my dog, like in the silence, taking that time to, center my thoughts and things like that. Know who I need to talk to if I'm struggling, always have someone available on my phone, even just helping other, like that's one of the reasons I love what I'm doing right now, is because helping others gets you out of your sense of self.
Mhm.
So if I'm having a terrible day, I can reach out to someone else and say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Instead of obsessing over how crappy of a day I'm having, it'll help me make someone else's day better. It's like an act of service.
Mhm.
Then having support around me. Not everyone is lucky in the fact that they have a family that supports them 100% and wants to see them thrive. My husband's been super supportive through everything. He knows that sometimes I need to go on a walk and get some space and, things like that. And he's been great with eliminating alcohol from the house and, supporting me through my sober journey. And then my mom has never drank in front of me again since I've been sober. So it's just having little things like that help,
Mhm.
but not everyone gets that. And that's, there's a whole program called Al-Anon for family members.
Right.
So there's things everyone around you can do. if they want to.
Yeah, right. And also you have your kids.
Yep.
That's, as well. Your twins are kind to keep you moving forward as well, which is, all you have a circle, a network of individuals that are there who love you and who appreciate you and who want the best for you,
Right.
which is nice. And, when you were talking about service, giving to others, it's such a quality of what the soul wants to do. And I usually say that our soul and our evolution and progress, we want to be able to be selfless. We also want to be able to surrender,
Mhm.
surrender those things. They're not to our higher good. And we realize that's not to our higher good. And it's just not with addiction, it's with anything that we're doing that may not serve us very well. And then there's sacrifice. There's willingness to kind of say, okay, I know I'm letting go of this for a purpose, for a higher purpose, and for greater meaning, and I'm willing to do it. So those qualities are qualities of the soul of selflessness, surrender, sacrifice, and service. So it sounds like you're hitting those points in some ways.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because people that I know that are also sober and in AA, we always joke that like the entire world should work a program of recovery because like even if they're not addicted or anything, like just learn how to live this way that we're living, like everyone would be so much better off because we learn how to like look at ourselves and our part in everything and then how we can adjust going forward and help others and all of these different things. Not everyone who is in AA does an awesome job. I may not be doing an awesome job. It depends on the day, but just having these
Mhm.
things in our back pocket is helpful and creates self-awareness.
Mhm. Those things that are in our back pocket that you've been putting in your back pocket to be able to pull out when you need is really important to everyone living a life who's walking a spiritual path. There's just ups and downs that you have in walking, and you may be climbing a high mountain. And so it's like, do I have my water? Do I have good sneakers? Do I have comfortable clothes? Do I have a change of clothes in case I need it?
Right.
So those are the things that, in some ways, figuratively speaking, it's in your back pocket, you're pulling out and you're having as resources for yourself. And I love the idea. I think, the world would be so much better if it was in a process of recovery from all this stuff that's been going
Right.
on, and then move into those qualities of looking and serving others. But first, as you were saying, having an understanding of self.
Right.
And that's what this has been doing for you in your process of recovery, is a better understanding of who I am and how I want to show up.
Exactly. We're getting there every day.
I think what my statement is: every day is a better day.
I love it.
Allowing you to get better and better and better. And you know what? We will fall down. We will not always do it right. But that's the beauty of living in life, is that we have a new day of opportunity to try it again and just
Mhm.
do a little bit better each and every day. So one of the things that you were talking about, in our earlier time together, was how you have an attitude of gratitude
Mhm.
from the experiences. And tell me more. There's different things that have allowed you to do that. And is that something you do every day, or is it kind of periodically in terms of the attitude of gratitude?
Yeah, I try to do like a gratitude list in the mornings, even if it's just like, I'm grateful my sheets are soft right now. It doesn't have to be like some huge, deep
Right.
thing, because then it just helps you realize what you do already have. And it's so easy to get caught up in the woe is me and the sad, down, depressed state. So just starting the day that way helps. But I have to it's so easy to get caught up in the, I never should have done that, why did
Mm.
I do this? That's gonna affect this. And it's like regretting the past and freaking out about the future are all just like things that could easily cause me to go back to drinking or using, but also just aren't healthy because you can't change the past, you can't figure out the future. So I just have to, when I start thinking that way, I tell myself, you know what? You picked this life for yourself. You picked this path for yourself. You had to go through that to get to your higher self. And that's what you're continuing to work on. So be grateful you went through it and figure out what you're learning from all of it. And so I am at this point grateful that I went through that, because here I am today hoping to help others and be able to coach others and do what I need to get them through their dark places. So if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't be doing what I do and wouldn't be who I am today. So I have to be grateful that I went through that, as painful as it was, or as hard as it is to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time I heard someone say I'm a grateful alcoholic, I was like, what? What? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And now, it makes sense to me, because I'm grateful I went through all those things to be who I am today.
Yeah, and sometimes the experiences that we go through, we don't realize the purpose or the grander plan of what's happening for us. Sometimes we're going through the experiences because we are going to be helping others. Because we know what it's like to be in the valley. We know what it's like to kind of climb and climb and climb and climb and climb and try to do your best, and you still don't get to the top,
Yeah,
at the speed that you want to get to that top, that mountain itself. So those experiences are painful, yes, but that's where the fork in the road comes in. It's like where the pain is we have a choice. The choice is to go down the old road, or the choice is to take the high road.
right.
And that's where the soul wants you to always is cheering you to say, go right,
Yeah,
go the right way, go the higher way, up the mountain in your life, because you know what? God forgives.
right,
And it's humans that don't forgive
right. Exactly.
ourselves. And so God says, are we doing better? Are we moving in a better way? Are we, trying to achieve a better direction or whatever? Or we keep on moving forward is what the soul, your I am presence, your creator, God, the universe is always wanting us to be able to do, and not get caught in the valley of despair, because
Hmm.
that's not what God wants us for us. We have free choice on this planet. And so we can choose which direction we want to move in, but he or she is always rooting for us to take the right path, the right-handed path.
Right. Yeah. And it's just up to us to do it.
Yeah,
Which
and find ways, like you were saying, find ways that we can do it, and have that reliance on support of the network or community of like-minded people to guide us, because it can be challenging. I'm not going to say it isn't, but the more that we score one for our creator, the more the soul says, yippee, hooray.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing it.
hmm Exactly, exactly. And so it moves you into seeing the dark places more as they were opportunities of growth,
Exactly.
opportunities of growth. And sometimes it's hard to be able to say, I'm not sure about that experience over here, or that experience, maybe these others, but
Right.
not these, it's like, but that's the ego wanting to say, get you back down in despair and
Mhm.
discouragement. And it's like, every opportunity I'm now looking and seeing as, where is that silver lining? I'm taking the silver lining. I'm putting aside the rest in
Right.
my interactions and in my life. And that's sometimes a lesson that we all have to learn how to do. Now, not just because you experience addiction, but because of living life and some of the challenges and some of the decisions and some of the things that happen to us in our life, we have to say, okay, where's that silver lining?
Hmm. Exactly. It's amazing how much ego comes up in recovery. It's a huge thing that we talk about. I've even done like a day-long spiritual retreat based around ego, and it's just fascinating to me. And it just creeps back in without you even really thinking about it. It's always there. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting, because I never thought about any of that stuff before. It was just like I wasn't I wasn't in the place where I was ready to hear any of it, which is the
Mhm.
difference. Now I'm excited to learn about those things, and even though half the time I'm like, uh-oh, something's going on here, but then I can at least learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we're literally trying to do is take the ego, which is when people, you've probably heard this energy going out, that is always going out to comparing, or to be able to say, well, this person is doing a little bit better, and I got to do it that way then. or, this is happening over here. Why aren't I doing that?
Right.
And so that when you get into this area of comparing ourselves, and we realize it's ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's really in the space of the soul expression that we realize, it really cares about how you are being, how you're showing up, and how you're growing from your experiences, and how you're enlisting grace, listening for, it's like you were saying earlier in terms of appreciation and having an attitude of appreciation. The soul loves gratitude. It loves you to be able to say, thank you for your presence with me today. Thank you for an opportunity to hear you and listening to you today. And so we're really learning a different language in some ways.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's like it's like starting as a baby again.
Mm-hmm.
And I still say, like, I'm a toddler in recovery, pretty much. If that, it's
Mm-hmm.
been 6 years, but there's been so many things throughout the 6 years that it's like, nope, still pretty new,
Mm-hmm.
still pretty fresh to this. And even, well, they call them old timers, but I think they're changing it to long timers because they're not necessarily old, but like
Uh-huh.
people, decades of years of sobriety, they always say, the person that means the most in this room to me is the one just walking in the door because they have the most to teach. And it's just, yeah, the whole concept is just, I've learned so much throughout all of it, never thinking this is where I would learn and find all of these things. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I'm hearing in the learning and with the long termers or the newbies is you're learning a sense of being fully present,
exactly.
being just fully present with what is going
Right.
on and learning and growing and advancing. That's exactly what the soul wants us to be. It's fully present.
Right.
And to good, the bad, and the ugly. That's so great.
Yeah.
Hmm. And that's the beauty of it all. Because I think every life has an opportunity, and I think you've said this too in some of the things you sent my way, that every life is an opportunity for growth, for advancement. Everything that you've done has grown you in some particular way as well. And that's lovely. So is there any type of phrase or comment that you want to have for the seekers about your life and your experiences as we've been talking about them?
Yeah. Well, I always come up with different things off the top of my head, but the phrase that I've been focusing on this week is that God or the universe or your higher power never gives you anything you can't handle. So even though it may feel like the world is falling down around you and there's no brightness in the air, this is where you're supposed to be and this is what you're supposed to be going through. That's just what I've been thinking about this week. If you asked me next week, it'd probably be something else. But yeah,
Mhm.
I also just love to remind everyone that whatever you're going through, you're not alone. There's someone else who's been through something similar. It may not be the exact same circumstance, but there's someone out there who knows what it feels like.
I'd like to hit that last point and maybe just talk a little bit about that before we end our time together. But this issue around being alone and how it shows up in our world and how we have to come to that awareness. But before we get to that awareness, what was it like for you? Was that greater sense that there was a sense of loneliness, or how would you describe it?
I think that you hit it on the head. There is a sense, and it's just, there's also the feeling of alone. It's like, is that just lonely or is it alone? Like, because I'm with people, but I feel alone. So it's just sitting with it and figuring out what it means to you, because for me, there's lots of different ways you can feel alone. But when it came to my addiction, it was like I thought I was the only one in the world drinking vodka out of the closet at 6 a.m. And then I get sober and I'm like, oh, might fit right in. That's totally fine. Like, not fine, but
Mm-hmm.
lots of people go through these things. So once you start like opening up and realizing, feeling figuring out the certain feeling you're having, you can talk through it with someone and they've probably been in the same place.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because you said, the feeling part of it, and it's everything that we numb ourselves around. But once we start awakening to those feelings, we realize there are people who have similar issues or experiences that we've gone through.
Right.
And then I'm always curious about the concept about being lonely and being alone.
Right.
And I think being lonely, and being alone, we can have a lot of people around us, but don't feel that connection, don't feel that sense of camaraderie that takes place in many regards. And one of the other flip side of that coin for the soul is aloneness is at one-ness. So we're being at one with ourselves, being comfortable with ourselves, being, like you were saying earlier, we're growing to understand who we are, who we really are. So it feels in the spaces, with this at one-ness. And so it's just another way of thinking about it.
Right. I like that. I'm going to write that in my journal after this.
Yes, yes. And one of the things you said too with meditation. So that centering and being at one with yourself, it requires you to do yoga or meditation to be at that oneness with oneself. And that helps us to grow and to expand in ways that is very delightful.
Right. Agreed.
Anything else you want to end with before we move towards our closing?
I think we've touched on a lot. This has been great. I'm still kind of digesting everything. Just talking to you, I always learn stuff too. So.
Yes. It's been delightful to have you, Ellen Elizabeth, because you were willing to share what has happened in your life in this real life adventure segment to help other people to say, you know what, we can have the best of backgrounds, but it doesn't mean we don't have some stumbling blocks that show up in our worlds that we have to contend with and deal with. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really real for many people. So I think our seekers and listeners are really happy to hear your story and understand that they're not alone in some of the struggles that they're going through, but they can move to that point of oneness, and having a greater sense of camaraderie through their understanding and advancing of themselves as they're walking their life path, their soul life path as well. Right. So thank you very much for joining me in this segment. And to our seekers, I want to share a little bit about yourself in terms of where they can reach you if they wanted to reach you or reach out to you.
Of course. Yeah. So I can be found on my website, which is www.itsellenelizabeth.com. You can go on there and find all my resources, all about me, all the other podcasts and places I've been. And I also have a book coming out called Split Ends. So if you're interested in reading that, it's a memoir, and you can go on my website to learn more. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at It's Ellen Elizabeth.
Great. When is your book coming out?
The book comes out May 23rd of this year. So coming up. Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm very excited. It's very exciting.
I bet you are. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, seekers, for listening in. And bye for now. Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.